Hi, welcome to episode 257 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Twitter. I blog over at the corner of knitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called the Corner of Knit and Tea where I sell my handspun yarns, and we have a Ravelry group called the Corner of Knit and Tea. If you haven't come over and checked us out, you should. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, December 16th, and I sheepishly have to admit that I skipped last week, which I guess some of you probably noticed, but no one said anything. I actually taped episode 257 last week, and then I completely forgot to upload it and remembered it around Thursday and thought, that's weird, I don't think I put up a new episode this week. And so it was on the video camera ready to go. I just had to edit it and upload it, and I just didn't. I don't really know why. I guess I got distracted and forgot, and it's very odd because that's never happened before. So today's episode 257 will be kind of a mix of last week's and this week's, and I apologize for the interruption in our regularly programmed schedule because that's sort of not the way I usually do things, and it's funny because last week I had promised you there would be no more interruptions for a while because I'm not taking time off over the holidays. So yeah. So I hope that you have had a wonderful couple weeks. I have been busy doing lots of crafting and commission projects and thinking about the year end. You missed a not so elegant section in the last episode that I taped where I sort of waxed poetic about the year and what I would do differently for next year. And it was very inelegant because I just sort of rambled for a while. So maybe I'll be able to put it together a little more coherently today. As you can see, I moved locations. I just thought it would be fun to do something a little different. I am in my living room in front of our holiday tree, and you can't see out the window. We have had well, not a ton of snow. We've had probably between 3 and 4 inches of snow. We got it last night. Schools are closed today. My husband did go to work, but the roads aren't completely plowed yet. So it is just, last I checked, it was about 25 degrees outside. So it is chilly and it is a snow day. And yesterday was a snow day. We went out super early in the morning and got some breakfast and stopped at the grocery store. But then we came home and it was a good thing because it basically snowed almost all day. I think we're supposed to get a little more today, but we haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. And in general, our city is not too bad with some snow. We mostly get ice. I am right outside of, I'm in the Kansas City metro area. I'm just a little bit outside of Kansas City. And normally we get mostly ice, not snow, and it hovers in the 20s and 30s during winter. We can handle snow. The deal was that it snowed almost all day yesterday, so they couldn't treat the roads until last night, and then they went ahead and canceled school for today, so I don't think they spent a ton of time overnight clearing the roads. So yeah, so it's kind of a beautiful winter wonderland out, and it is still cold, so it's not going to melt anytime soon, and there is no sun today. So it is chilly and very wintry feeling, and I thought that it would be nice to sit in a different room for a change of pace. So I am drinking today, it is not tea, it is hot chocolate. I just decided to get a little bit in the holiday spirit, and I am drinking in my new sheepy mug, which was given to me by my sister over Thanksgiving, and it is it's called Ireland Woolly Wares, and it's by claracrafts.com, and it is just a cute little sheepy mug, and it actually came with a tea bag plate, which I did not need today, so I'm having just a little bit of hot chocolate. It is about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I decided to take a break from work and record the podcast, and then I have a few more things to do today. So let's talk about the knits. The one you missed is the Onlay shawl. I did finish that and send it back as a sample, and I was happy to sort of cross that off my list. It was a delightful knit. It is the Onlay shawl by Anne Podlesak from Woolly Wonka Fibers. It will be re-released in January as a part of a new collection she's debuting, and I knit it in Rama Alpaca Lin, which is a wool and alpaca blend, and it is nice and fuzzy, and it has a beautiful halo, and it's super soft. It's a bit of an alternative to mohair, and it was lovely to knit with. I knit in 3 colors. various shades of gray, and it was a beaded rectangular stole. I forgot to grab pictures of it, basically because the designer and I decided she had mentioned that she wanted to block it. And so I sent it back to her unblocked. And since I didn't, usually I block and I clip the ends and I take pictures. And actually I just finished it and stuck it in a box and then realized I never took pictures of it. So that one is done. Let's talk about what I have been knitting. I do have a really quick finish that I knit yesterday. I'm calling it my snow day hat because that's exactly, I woke up and I wanted to cast on something new, and I had a skein of bulky yarn and a beautiful pom-pom, and I decided that I was just gonna knit myself a hat. So this is what's left. I do have about 30 grams left. I'm not sure what I'll do with it. It is a bulky weight yarn. It is Caracol by Malabrigo, and the yarn looks like, which I can tell sort of as a spinner, it reminds me a little bit of homespun, in that it is basically roving, and then it has sort of a knitted netting around the roving. I don't know how well you can see this. Let me see if I can. I positioned the camera a little further away today, so let's see if I can. Let's see if I can. I don't know that I can, but let's see. So it is, that's not bad. It is roving with kind of a knitted sort of little, it almost looks like fishnet over it to kind of keep it in place. And it is a really beautiful yarn. It is in all those beautiful colorways that Malabrigo comes up with. That is a really good shot. This is the Diana colorway, and it is a super bulky. It comes in skeins of 150 grams and about 90 yards, as I recall. And there are quite a few hat patterns out there, and I actually mixed two. And the deal is that I had a faux fur pom-pom that I decided to use. I suspect I could have used what's left here for the pom-pom on the hat if I'd wanted to. And maybe I'll just make a fun pom-pom anyway and either put it on something else, or I can alternate with it on here. So the hat that I made is a combination of two hat patterns. And here is what it looks like. And the two hat patterns that I used for the numbers and sort of the cast on and crown shaping, I used the pattern Nour, N-O-U-R, or it's Nour, I don't know. And it's by Alexandra Alfonso. That will be linked in the show notes. And then it actually calls for a hat that is ribbed. And I decided I didn't want to do a ribbed hat. And what I really liked is there is another hat called the Vermonter by Abby Gregorio. And that hat is a stockinette hat. It's knit in bulky yarn. And actually it's knit in bulky rather than super bulky. The bulky being defined as about 100 yards to 100 grams as opposed to 90 yards to 150 grams. So that's quite a bit of difference there. And hers is a stockinette hat with a couple garter ridges. And I just thought the yarn was so bright and busy that it would be really nice to just have little bits of texture on there. So I knit this up yesterday. It took me about 2 hours start to finish, and then included the faux fur pom-pom, which is on a snap. So I sewed the snap on. Let me see if I can pull it off. Yep, I just sewed the snap right on top so I can take the pom-pom off when I want to wash it and put it back on when I want to wear it. And this is my first time using one of those snappy pom-poms, but it's really nice. The pom-pom I got at one local yarn store, and the yarn I got at another local yarn store. So the yarn itself I bought at Unwind, I think it's Unwind Yarn, which is in Lee's Summit, which is a suburb of Kansas City. And the pom-pom I got at Yarn Social, which is my new LYS where I normally go for things, and that is up off the plaza in Kansas City as well. So it is a cute hat. I will put it on. It is just warm and cozy, and it was a fabulous snow day project. So that is the only thing that I have finished recently, but that was kind of a good instant gratification project. So let's talk about what I'm working on. Last time I sat and talked with you, I was working on a sample for Zen Yarn Garden. I do a lot of sample knitting for them, and I love their yarns. And I had showed you that I was going to be knitting a night shift by Andrea Mowry, who is Drea Renee Knits. and they had sent me 6 skeins of yarn, and I remember having trouble showing them all to you, but there were some blues and there were some multicolors and a gray, and then kind of a white speckle for a pop. And I have been knitting that pattern. I am knitting it, well, okay, I'm knitting roughly per pattern, which means I am following her knitting instructions exactly. The one thing that I am not doing exactly the same as the pattern is that I have been having to rearrange the colors a little bit. I don't know if you remember, but I had 2 blues that were fairly close to each other and 2 multicolors that were fairly close to each other. So I knew I was going to have to do some modification in terms of how the colors played together. So I'm actually almost done with this. I am on the next to the last section. I'm about halfway through it. And so I am very excited. I hope to finish and block this one this week and maybe even get this out by the end of the week, because this is a sample. Zen Yarn Garden will be at Vogue Knitting Live in New York, and it is one of the samples and kits they would like to take with them. So let me show you. Last time I started, so let's start with Night Shift is a shawl. It is knit in worsted weight. The original pattern calls for spin cycle yarns, which is a small batch spun. It is not hand spun, but it is spun to look like it is hand spun. And I am knitting all in Zen Yarn Garden colors. I am using their Serenity worsted base, which is a merino cashmere silk and absolutely lovely to knit with. The Night Shift shawl calls for 6 different colors, and it is a slip stitch pattern that works different colors together at different times and adds a little bit of texture to create a really beautiful shawl. So I know I had the first couple sections done the last time I had talked to you. As you can see, the blues are fairly close. But I just had these really nice dark gemstone-y colors. See if I can get it just a little bit closer so it doesn't blow out. So I think I had the first 3 or 4 sections done when I last talked to you. Now I have moved along and moved through a bunch of different colors, and I am on the 9th of 10 sections. And so this last section right here I am working on is in the blue and the white, and then the next one will be white. And I'm not sure, the white speckle, sorry. And then I'm not sure what contrast color I will use because I am sort of running out of colors. I do have some of the blues left over, which is fine, because I think so far this plays together really nicely as a shawl. It's a little bit more monochromatic, I would say, than the original, but as I said, the colors in this are very close to one another. So I do really like the way it's playing out, and there will be a little bit of a pop of white at the end. So it's kind of vaguely striped and textured, and it's really, really beautiful. And I think it's going to block out nicely. And as I said, it's merino cashmere silk, so it is just absolutely luscious. So this is where most of my knitting time I would say approximately half of my knitting time has been going. Again, this is the Night Shift shawl by Drea Renee Knits, Andrea Mowry. It is a paid-for pattern on Ravelry. I'm using Zen Yarn Garden yarns and US 8 needles as called for. So my plan is to hopefully finish that within the next couple nights and get that out to where it needs to go. So, aside from the bulky hat, which I did as an instant gratification knit, I also talked, well, maybe I didn't because I must have showed it last week. I decided to pull out another hat. What has been going on is I've been working very hard on a couple different projects. I've been working on some samples for Zen Yarn Garden, which I have shown you. I have been working diligently on chicken feathers, and actually I brought some to show you. I joined the City Girl Farm, which is an artisan here in Kansas City, which is the home of the chicken footstool. I think I've talked about this a little bit. And I have been knitting various hand-spun yarns into bits and pieces to cover chickens with. And I thought I would bring this to show you just because this is the most feather-like thing that I have done. The last couple weeks I have been working on knitting actual feathers or things that look like feathers. And these are kind of what I'm knitting. They're little stacks of feathers, and they are actually fairly time intensive because you have to knit each petal sort of somewhat separately and then kind of join them all together, seam them, weave in all the ends. They are taking a lot of work. Each little one takes between an hour and a half and 2 hours to, the whole thing that I have sewn up here takes between an hour and a half and and 2 hours to complete. And I am doing one in brown and white, and then I just started one in pink and white, because they're going to do a set of 2. So I have been working on these like crazy. It is a pattern that they have developed, so I'm not going to discuss too much about it because it is sort of their proprietary pattern, but I have been doing at least one of these a night, sometimes more, and blocking them out everywhere and sending them back as fast as I can, and I have at least one more week of knitting more feathers before we move on to other things like wings and other body pieces. So this has kept me busy. I would say I'm spending most of my time doing samples and probably, well, half of my time doing samples and the other half working on chicken feathers. So that is kind of what I'm doing there. I just thought I'd bring that and show you. So last week I just talked about, well, it was sort of in my year-end review as I was starting to think about the things that I wanted to knit this year and the things that I started this year and the things that I did not get to knit this year. When I began the year, I had a make 9, and I picked 9 patterns that I thought I wanted to make throughout the year. And I have done approximately, well, I may not be done with quite half of them, but I am working on them. And I at least know there is a sock pattern in there that I'm going to use as my Christmas Eve cast-on socks. If you've been watching the podcast for a while or you watch other knitting podcasts, you know that is Danny of Little Bobbins Knits, always does a Christmas Eve cast-on. It does not have to be socks, it does not have to be Christmas socks, but in general I cast on a pair of socks, and because I'm usually running behind and I haven't had time to knit my Christmas socks for the year, usually I cast on my Christmas socks on Christmas Eve, finish them early in the new year, and then have them for the following year. So my Christmas Eve cast on this year will be the last pattern from my Make 9 with some beautiful Christmas yarn that I will bring and show you next week. But as I was sort of wrapping the year up and looking at projects that I wanted to complete and projects that I wanted to knit, and I didn't know that I was going to knit that bulky hat yesterday, I decided that I wanted to knit another hat that has been in the works. The planning has been in the works almost all year, and that is the Boosta Beanie. It is a pattern by Gudrun Johnson, and it was designed for Shetland Wool Week a few years ago. And the reason that I wanted to knit it is because when I was in London in January, I met up with a dear friend, and she took me to Loop Yarns, and I purchased some Jamieson and Smith Spindrift, or sorry, Jamieson's Spindrift. I have it here. And Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift to make the Boosta Beanie hat. So I had picked 3 colors, and then when I got to looking at the pattern, I realized I did not have enough of the main color. So I ended up having to send away for another skein of the main color, which is raspberry. And this is the colorway. This is the second one that I had to order. And so I ordered that, and I started this project this week. Let me see if I do not have the pattern printed out. It is a color work hat, more like a toque. It's a little slouchy in the back, or it can be a little slouchy if you want it to be. And it is knit with sort of patterns of triangles. It reminds me of flying geese. And one row goes one direction and one row goes another direction. And you can... It is a paid-for pattern on Ravelry. Like I said, it was originally designed for Shetland Wool Week. And so I started but did not get very far. And my colors are kind of close together. At least 2 of them are. So last week I talked a little bit about how I was going to decide how to use the colors. And these are the 3 colors that I picked. This one is raspberry, this one is sunset, and the green is laurel. And I tried to decide how I wanted to do the hat. I think the hat might have been most stunning had I done the hat in with the main color in laurel and the other 2 colors as the color work, but I decided that what was closest or best nearest my face was going to be the raspberry, so I decided the raspberry would be the main color and these 2 would be the contrast colors. And these 2 are a little bit close together, and so I think it's going to be fairly subtle, and unfortunately I only have a little bit to show you because I didn't work on this as much this week because I got distracted by other things, including that bulky hat. But this is what I am working on. Oh, it actually shows up okay on camera, I guess. I think it looks a little close when I look at it, but I have just started the green section, and basically you can see it's one direction of triangles, or it's one set of triangles going one way, and now I'm going to start the triangles that go the other way. So I am knitting this on, I think it was 2.75 millimeter and 4s, which are 3.25 millimeter. 3.5 millimeter. I can't remember the millimeters, but 2s and 4s basically. And so I am basically just following the pattern. It called for the contrast cast on and then beginning knitting in the 2x2 rib. And then now, like I said, I am in the color work. And I think this is going to be great. It looks a little bit big from what I'm knitting, and that may just be my tension, but I think I'm actually going to be okay with that because it will be a little slouchy, and also because Jamison's is not terribly rough, but it's also not terribly soft either. And I haven't decided if I'm really going to be able to wear this on my forehead. So there is the possibility that I will line the brim with something else that won't make me itchy, because I just have super sensitive skin and sometimes I can't handle the wool. And I do think this would make a great sweater, and this is my first time working with the yarn. I suspect I will use it again, potentially for like a colorwork sweater or colorwork mittens. I just think on my forehead it may actually be a little itchy. So I'm not concerned that it's a little bit big, because I may knit a liner out of something that is more comfortable to wear right next to my skin. So I hope by next week I'll have a little more to show you on this one. My plan is actually not to have the finished night shift to show you, because I am hoping to get that in the mail this week. And then for my holiday knitting, like I said, I am going to cast on a pair of holiday socks, and I hope to get back to my Girls Night Out sweater, which was my Nanny Swaymo sweater. I still have 3 or 4 inches, 6 inches on the body, and then I have the sleeves to go. And if I could finish that by the end of the year, I would be overjoyed. I do not know that that's going to happen because one of the things I was talking about last week was when I podcasted last week on Monday, my needles were basically empty except for the night shift shawl. And so I was like, this is great. And then on Tuesday, I got a couple more sample knits. So my needles are busy, but I am thinking about taking some time off next week and just knitting for myself. The 2 big things that I did not finish this year that I really would like to is I am sorry to have not finished my Nanny Swaymo. I really wish I had. It's a useful garment that I think I'm going to wear. Just as a reminder, it's kind of a basic black sweater. It's the Night Out cardigan by Joji Locatelli, and I'm knitting it in Anzula Dreamy in black. It's just going to be a great all-purpose garment, and I really want to finish it so that I can wear it. The second item that I started knitting this year, and I started knitting it on my trip to London in January, so it has been almost an entire year, is my Boxy, also by Joji Locatelli. Gosh, I didn't realize I had so many by her. And that I'm knitting in Woolly Wonka fibers in her Gaia base, which is a superwash merino fingering single, and that is in the colorway, it's either Huckleberry or Elderberry. I think it's Huckleberry. It's kind of a purpley pink. And I'm really sorry that I did not get to finish that one. And I will definitely not get to finish that one because there's no way I will finish 2 sweaters, 2 fingering weight sweaters in the next 2 weeks, plus start another sample knit, plus knit chicken feathers. So that is sort of on the back burner, but those were part of my Make 9. I also did a night shift for myself, which was part of a Make 9, and I'm trying to think what else. Oh, and it started snowing. So I guess we are getting more snow today. I can see the snow outside. So the big thing that I talked about last week was when I started out the year, and I guess I started to say this earlier, I started with a Make 9, which was 9 projects I wanted to make this year. And when I started the year, I had no idea that I was going to get so big into sample knitting. And so I have been doing sample knitting for other people this year, which has actually been fabulous. I am not sick of it. I get to knit things that I might not otherwise knit for myself using beautiful yarns. And as you might guess, since I am a fairly prolific knitter and I've been doing this a while, I have a lot of knitted garments around the house. And I actually have a bureau that's completely full of knitted garments, just one whole chest of drawers that's all mine, and it's a tall bureau, and it is completely full of sweaters and shawls and scarves and hats and socks and mittens. And so sometimes it's nice to knit projects with beautiful yarns that then go elsewhere. And I have also been doing it as a way to supplement my income a little bit this year. So I didn't get to knit as much for myself as I thought I might at the beginning of the year, and I'm okay with that. I'm actually not, it's not like I'm beating myself up here because I wasn't as productive as I hoped to be this year. But that said, I do have beautiful yarns in my stash. I have tried not to stash as much this year, to a moderate success. I need to see what I can finish before the end of the year, and then I will also talk about I've still been tracking things this year to see sort of what's coming in and what's going out, and how many yards I've knit up and how many ounces I've spun up and some of those kinds of things. So I will be looking at that in the next couple episodes. But it's sort of giving me pause as I think about what I want to plan for next year. I have several things that I would like to get off the needles. Like I said, the Night Out cardigan, the boxy, and then there was actually another sweater that I started, I think about a year and a half ago, and it was the Pismo Beach pullover, and I was doing it in sort of a metallic teal from Katia, I think. And I would like to pull that out and finish it. I have quite a few skeins of self-striping sock yarn that I would love to knit up into socks this year. And my new thing is like instant gratification hats. I still have a couple more skeins and a couple more pom-poms of hats to do. So I might plug those in between larger projects just because it's fun to kind of sit for an afternoon or two and knit something and then be done and have something fun to wear. So I have just a tiny bit of spinning and then I will wrap up for today. So I showed you some of the spinning that I was doing for the chicken feathers, and the upshot is that when I finished that, I finished about 1,300 yards, and let me think about this. It was more than 2 pounds of fiber that I spun up. And because I was spinning it thick and quick and bulky, I went through those 2 pounds really fast, and that totally brought my total spun for the year up a lot because I had been doing so much sample knitting, I had not been sitting and spinning. But I got all of that off the wheel, and then I decided I really wanted to go back and spin some more before the end of the year because I had gotten the wheel out. And so I went back to Hello Yarn. I had told you ages ago that I wanted to spin a fiber called Bee Eater. It was a clip colorway for this year, and I believe it's on BFL and Silk, and I'm working on it, and it is right here. I am actually, since I'm in the living room and the spinning wheel is here, I'm gonna get to show you. The fiber itself looks like this. It is greens and yellows and pinks, and it is really actually kind of a springy colorway. And spun up, it looks a little like this. Gosh, that's going to be hard to, and I don't have that much more. Let me see if I can. There you go. Spun up, it looks like that. This is my Hanson mini spinner. It is a cherry wood, and I've had it for several years now and bought it from a friend. And then these are my Acreworks bobbins on there. They are plastic collapsible bobbins, and I really love them. They're super lightweight. They're really nice on the wheel. So I have 2 more bumps to spin. It's this little one and then another little one, and each of these is probably about 2/3 of an ounce. So I will probably finish spinning these in the next night or two, I hope, and then go on to plying that. And my hope is maybe I'll get in 1 more spin before the year is over. As I said, I do have some knitting projects I really want to finish before the end of the year, so I might actually put the spinning wheel away and just concentrate on knitting. So that is all the news that's fit to print. I do apologize again for missing last week. If you just tuned in today, this podcast is, missing a week is not usually emblematic. I do take a few weeks off for travel, but in general, I publish every Monday on YouTube. And this episode will be up this evening, and the show notes will be posted over on the blog. If you haven't come over and joined the Ravelry group, we are just finishing our gift along. That is a craft along where the purpose is that, I host the gift along each year. Basically, anything that you craft for someone else between November 1st and December 31st is eligible for entry. It has to be no less than half done as of November 1st, but if it is less than half done, whips are okay. And it is anything, I call it the gift along because it is multi-craftual. It is knitting, spinning, crocheting, weaving, sewing, kind of anything you are crafting for others this season. And we have a nice number of entries over there, and I will be offering some prizes. I'll draw for those the first few days of January. So if you are already crafting for people, you can double, triple, quadruple dip with other knit-alongs and other things. The only rule is that it has to be for someone other than yourself. And that does not have to be a holiday gift. You could be knitting a birthday sweater for someone next year or a just because gift. It just has to be something for someone other than yourself. So head on over there and check that out if you're interested. Thank you for joining me today. I hope I didn't ramble on too much. And I will be back next week, and this episode will definitely get posted. So until I see you next time, I will say happy spinning, let's try again. Happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.